So thank you everyone for being here tonight. Welcome to the Marfan Foundation's 2024 Virtual Global Conference. I'm Eileen Novins, and I'm the Foundation's Chief Global Development Officer. I'm based in Florida, and I look forward to meeting many of you on my travels in the coming months. It gives me great pleasure to be the first to greet you all and to serve as your MC tonight for our opening session. First, I'd like to introduce you to the Chair of the Foundation's Board of Directors, Bert Medina, and I will bring him to the front now for you. And here's Bert, the Chair of the Foundation's Board of Directors. Bert?
Thank you very much, Eileen. And to all of you all over the world, thank you very much for joining us today. Like Eileen, I'm here in Florida, but you will see throughout this global conference that our staff is in all parts of the US, and you will be able to hear speakers this week from all over the world. We actually started our virtual programming a couple of years before the pandemic, so we kind of got a little bit of a head start. And because of that, the foundation has been able to help educate, empower, and connect thousands of people with Marfan's lowest needs and vets in all parts of the globe. Our website is actually translatable in 25 languages, and we have grown our Spanish language programming significantly in the past few years. If you're looking for an in-person opportunity, we will be hosting an international symposium for affected people and their families in Oslo on August 25th and in London on August 31st. Then we will have a symposium fully in Spanish in Puerto Rico for affected people and their families. The Foundation's outreach knows no borders. We are so glad that we can reach you in the comfort of your own home, regardless of where that may be. Please take advantage of this virtual conference and know that we are always, always here to help. Eileen.
Thank you, Bert. Now I'd like to introduce the President and CEO of the Marfan Foundation, Michael Weamer.
Thanks, Eileen. It's great to be with you this evening, actually coming from my home in Connecticut. And I cannot begin to tell you how proud I am to be Bert's partner, as he's a remarkable chair, and also to partner with our terrific staff team who led this effort. We are thrilled to bring you this year's virtual global conference to all of you, and it really is global. We have over 1,700 registrants from 54 countries as of this evening. That includes Australia and New Zealand, to India, to the Middle East, and from so many countries in Europe, Central America, and South America. We could not be more excited. The Foundation's mission is to save and improve lives while creating communities for all individuals with genetic, aortic, and vascular conditions. And they include Marfan, Loeys-Dietz, and vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndromes. We have been doing this in the US since 1981, and now, as Bert mentioned, we are partnering with colleagues and volunteers around the world on virtual and in-person meetings. This week, we have many great opportunities for you to learn from the experts, as well as sessions on mental health topics and a number of social opportunities, including our virtual victory party celebration coming up on Saturday. In the end, we hope that you will find yourself more informed, better equipped to handle the medical challenges you and your family may face, able to recognize the challenges of living with a complex genetic condition, and even more important, armed with the tools to overcome these challenges. We also hope you feel more connected and better supported after this conference. We are fortunate to have an amazing community of world-class clinicians and researchers, families and volunteers. We are all here for you. Enjoy the conference, and back to you, Eileen.
Thank you so much, Michael. As you see, we have great leadership here at the Marfan Foundation, and we're so glad to bring this all to you. Before we have our next speaker, I just have a couple of housekeeping details for all of you. Tonight, there's not Q&A tonight, but you can continue to chat. I see a lot of chatting going on in the chat box, so feel free to do that. During any part of this conference, you have questions and answers. The sessions have Q&A boxes. Also, of course, there's marfan.org/ask, where you can submit questions to our Help and Resource Center and get those answered. If you miss a session that you really wanted to listen to for whatever reason, the medical management talks and the mental health sessions will be recorded, and they'll be provided at a later date on our YouTube channel. Anything that's like a support group or that will not be recorded for obvious reasons. A couple other things to let you know. Be sure to join us for a fun time with the community at the Global Victory Party, which is at the end of this conference on Saturday from 12 to 1 Eastern Time. And we'll be celebrating with Grammy Award nominee DJ Willie Wow, and enjoy games, awards, and some surprises. Finally, if you're participating in this virtual conference using your phone, please navigate back to the main event page at the end of each session to choose your next session. So now the three of us are going to take a step back, and we will bring forward Dr. Melissa Flint for tonight's opening session. And there she is, like clockwork. I love how that works. Dr. Flint received both her master's and doctoral degrees in clinical psychology from the Arizona School of Professional Psychology at Argosy University. Dr. Flint serves as a tenured professor at Midwestern University in Glendale, Arizona. She is one of only a few people worldwide to hold her fellow in thanatology, which is the advanced certification in death, dying, and bereavement. Dr. Flint serves as a member of the Professional Advisory Board for the Marfan Foundation, and she often speaks to our communities about mental health and quality of life issues. So we welcome you tonight, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you all so much. I'm going to share my screen and just get confirmation that it's looking okay from your side. Thumbs up. All right. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much. And what an impressive gathering of incredible individuals you've been able to put together. Go through some of the nitty gritty here. There's all my contact information and that good stuff. But really, I wanted just to say we're here, and we're undoubtedly here with a mix of a whole bunch of different feelings, both hopes, maybe even some fears, not sure what's going to happen. And I just want to hold space for all of those feelings. They're so pertinent and so important. And we're going to hold some space for that as we prepare to kind of launch into this amazing opportunity that we have together. Somebody had asked, where did this start for me? I am not affected, and I don't have any family members that are. And so I kind of reflected on that journey. Way back in 2016, there was an inaugural Phoenix Marfan Symposium here on my campus. And they just said, hey, we don't have any psychologists involved. Will you come on over? And I tell you what, y'all, you are a special group. And I just want to express my thanks for allowing me to be part of the community and to help serve and hear so many of your stories. So I start with gratitude and a reflection of where this part of the journey for me as one of your speakers started. So no matter where you are, where you join us from, we are united in our experience of either being, serving, and or loving someone with a connective tissue disorder. And I just want to say welcome. And I'm so glad that you're here, as are all of the individuals involved in putting on a conference of this magnitude. Congratulations on that. So we're talking about outlook, right, and connection today, just for a little while. And our outlook is influenced by so many different things. You will see blank lines on this slide. There should have been 40 others. But, we're influenced how we look at the world by our core personality, by what's going on socially, coping skills that we have or don't have, are using or aren't using as human beings, stress levels, what's going on in our physical health, all sorts of different things. And so we can't just say unilaterally that outlook is just this. It's influenced by so many different things. And when you're in a very challenging life situation and people you love are in that situation, it's sometimes hard to see on the positive side. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we can balance that, because there are lots of concerning things. There's lots of stressful things. And there is an opportunity, despite those things, to really live with a fullness and richness in life. And a lot of that comes down to how we kind of choose to look at things. And I'm going to share a few things about that, just a few minutes today. So I have to admit something to you. I'm coming out to the world right now. I am a glass half empty lady. by trait. I kind of hold, if I'm just in my natural kind of state without thinking about this, when I sit with people who've experienced traumatic grief, for example, it's kind of hard not to just look at the very sad side of things sometimes. And some of you might be feeling that just with, international news and all the stressors and things that are going on. And I found for myself, and I'll be really honest, that because I tend to see things from a little bit of a darker perspective, I had to choose to see it differently. Otherwise, I was going to get stuck. And positive outlook is something that I choose to try to lean into. Now, notice that I didn't say choose or I'm always there, because I'm not always there. I'm going to be honest, but I lean into it. But I balance that with acknowledging the reality that life is really hard sometimes, and we are thrown curveballs at enormous frequency. And so I've tended to know for myself, and maybe you fall into this category as well, I have to rely on some reminders to keep me in balance, not so stuck kind of in that despair or anxiety, which coping with a chronic illness can really do to individuals in different other situations as well, but specifically for our audience here. It's easy to get stuck in that place, isn't it? And often lose sight that there's something different. This is a quote that I'm going to share 2 quotes with you tonight that I actually have posted in my office across from my desk so that I can see them when I'm in meetings, when I'm doing projects. One is, despair is a place where hope cannot flourish. And I, at different parts of my life, have found in different times where it was hard to see hope. And I want you to know that no matter how dark or dire or scary the situation can be, there are so many things we can do to increase our knowledge, which is what you're doing here today and in the next part of this conference, but also that I can choose to acknowledge the despair and not sit in it. And that is a very empowering tool for an individual to know. Our mind and body are incredibly connected. I don't know if y'all felt this and know this, but there is a lot to be said about really thinking about our motives and what we're doing, and then employing the mental strength to choose to look at something from a little bit more positive perspective. And again, I'll explain a little bit more about that, but I just kind of want to introduce that. Despair is a place where hope cannot flourish. And I hope for you that you are in a place where hope flourishes despite the challenges that can come along. There's also blessings that come along with this adventure, this journey that nobody signed up for. And here you are all today sharing in some of those things. Choosing a more positive attitude or outlook is not rainbows and unicorns and looking at everything as everything positive and never looking at anything that is sorrowful or heavy. That is not the balance at all that I'm talking about. So I wanted to make sure that I shared that is not the expectation for any of us, nor is it possible for us to do, because after all, I don't know if we've been informed of this today, but we are all human, and we carry both, the traits that look at positivity and traits that look at a little bit more of the dire side. And sometimes we need to sit in each of those sides. So choosing a more positive outlook is definitely not kind of what we call here in the United States, kind of a Pollyanna-ish syndrome, which I have been accused of having from time to time. This is one of my absolute favorite quotes. And this individual, Dr. Viktor Frankl, was actually a concentration camp survivor. And when I think about things in life that would have been a challenge that I'm not sure that I would have the ability to withstand, that is certainly one of them. And he said this: between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And at first, when I read that, I have to be honest, I was kind of like, oh gosh. And then I really sat with it and I was like, wait a minute. In that space, I do have some choice. And I'm going to kind of go through how that might reflect on some of our lived experiences that we share here in the organization. So if this is what that looks like, between stimulus and response, there's a space. We are in that space. And I found that I first needed to recognize that I was in fact in that space and that I had some power in this, because there's a lot of life circumstances that can make us feel powerless. And I know medical situations can often feel that way. And I needed to step back into my power and claim my space that he was talking about. And this is kind of what that looked like in my mind's eye. So what do we do with it from there? Because that's all beautiful and lovely, right? And what a smart guy. And what does that mean for me? Well, between stimulus and response, there's a freedom to choose. So if that is the case, and if I believe that, There's a reactive choice and there's a proactive choice. And so I applied a couple of things that we might be tossing around even today as we join this symposium or this conference. Reactive choice would be, I've learned a new piece of medical information that terrifies me. I'm paralyzed in fear. Versus a proactive choice, that choosing the outlook, learning all I can gives me the power to make the best decisions for myself and my loved one. Those are two different emotional spaces, aren't they? And they are both valid. And there are some times where you sit in the reactive. We all do. And there's oftentimes we sit in the proactive. But as I look at those flip sides of the coin, I find myself trying to make the dedication to my growth, to my continuing adventure in this world, that I sure want to be more on the proactive side, that maybe the glass half full versus the glass half empty kind of way. Another example, reactive freedom to choose. No one will understand me in my situation. I'm all alone in this. Versus meeting new people increases my circle of support. I can use all the people in my corner that I can get. Again, flip sides of the same coin, right? Which one are you going to lean into? And you might not be successful in, it's not just shutting off a light switch on off. It's not that easy, much more complicated than that. But if we set the framework for our expectation, we set our intention, we call it in psychology, we can actually move that pendulum one way or the other. And I hope that you will lean into the proactive with me. One more example, reactive. This virtual format makes it too difficult to meet anyone, especially if you've been here before in real life conferences. You know the magic of that. And I'm going to put out there in the world that proactively I get a chance to meet people from all over the world in this format that I would never otherwise get connected with. What an incredible blessing that might be. And again, same issue, just different sides of the coin. Which one am I going to lean into? We talk about connections. The really important thing I think is this, that we forget, that we all have lots of different support systems, right? Some of them are in our medical sphere, some of them are in social spheres, some of them are in educational or even our faith-based systems. And when we are in need, when we're in those vulnerable moments where maybe we're having a little bit more of a hard time not leaning into the despair, you know, it's really important that we consider circling the wagons. And I use this analogy a lot. And circling the wagons just means bringing in the connections that you've made that are the supportive connections, that are the ones that really kind of help you lean in to the place that you want to be versus keeping you kind of stuck in that more despair or the fear or the anxiety, those kind of settings. Making these connections can happen just as efficiently over the internet as they can in real life. Before COVID, we all remember that era for sure. I was pretty convinced that I could never do traumatic grief work with individuals, chronic trauma work with individuals over the internet. We had to be in person. I was convinced of this. So I even thought about shutting down my practice when COVID happened. And I said, no, wait a minute, let me try. And we used a virtual format. And you know what? There's been so many unexpected, beautiful points in that, in being able to be in your own space, in your own time. And so I just encourage you that if the virtual format's kind of feeling a little bit different for you, lean into that different and celebrate that different and find all the connections that you can. Because sometimes at 2 a.m., we might need that connection in our circling the wagons. Another thing that I just want to put out about this idea of circling the wagons, not everyone deserves to be in the wagon that's in your circle. And I know that sounds a little dramatic, but if you're finding yourself pouring into somebody or a relationship more, and when you need the pouring into, they're inaccessible or they're not able to do that, there's not a reciprocal relationship. I'm going to encourage you to kind of look at who's in that circle. And there can be many circles, but that inside circle, when there's times of crisis or times of need to be your true supports. And if we really looked at the relationships that we have in all spheres of our lives, there are some people that are going to be in that inner circle and others that are kind of just in some outward concentric circles. And I want you to pull in all the helpful people. You might feel the need for that at different points during this conference as well, as you find out new things or make connections that you didn't expect to meet or to make. Circling your wagons is a really important concept. I want to reflect on last year, if I can, just for a second, because connections are so incredibly powerful. When we think about connections, this was the Palmer House where we had last year's conference, and during conference time, I spent a lot of time in the lobby because I want to people watch. I want to see what's happening. And this organization had this magical way of connecting, and you could see it on people's faces. You could see it in the tears. You could see it in the laughter. You could see it in the caring professionals embracing people who had questions. You could see it in all levels of the administration of this organization. And I just want to challenge you to find out for yourself how you are going to make this format all that it can be and more, to bring in those connections. They mentioned the victory party, of course, and there's many other ways through the support groups. And even though they're online, I'm going to ask that you put yourself out there and you wonder what connection I'm going to make in this session, and see how you can build that circle of support. I am so proud of what you all naturally do. And I was able to watch that, just one of many examples at last year's conference. And I'm excited for you for what things this conference is going to bring, and how you will be able to lean into maybe that proactiveness versus reactiveness by kind of assessing how your outlook is in that moment. There is a beauty in connection with knowing others. There's this beautiful poem that I share with patients, and actually I should share it with the organization as well. It's called The Mask I Wear. And in this poem, it talks about the masks that we have on often as individuals, and how sometimes we can't let the real us be seen by society for a variety of reasons. People maybe don't understand the illness or the limitations that I might have, or they might not understand the mental health struggle of 3 a.m. not knowing what to do in tomorrow's appointment, and all those kind of things, right? And this poem talks eloquently about, please see behind the mask I wear, the mask that shows me the realness, but doesn't show you the realness. I hope that you can put down those masks this week in this time that we have together, because there's not a more understanding bunch, and not a more knowing bunch than is in this collective room. And that is the beauty of companionship and the beauty of connecting. Now, there's some on the call, undoubtedly, and that will watch the reruns that are like, yes, but I'm the introvert. I'm the absolute introvert. There's plenty of psychological studies that actually tells us that as human beings, we can act in an extrovert or introvert kind of way. But when we get down to the brass tacks of it, we actually need human connection. We need understanding and loving connection at some level. Maybe some people need it 23 hours out of the day, and maybe I only need it 1, but we still need it. And reaching out and letting people know how they can help serve in that capacity, especially in times where you might be feeling a little bit more challenged or a little bit more anxious, is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I hope that you're able to do that. So as we talk today about all the different things that can go on, and how we really can, in that space, choose to go one direction or another, to lean in might be a better way to speak. I want you to think about setting your intentions, and maybe even whenever you're watching this, but certainly the people watching live, I wonder if you have a little piece of paper somewhere and you could just jot down, what are your intentions for this conference? What do you hope to get? Is it information seeking? I've never been connected before. Right before session, we were kind of in the green room, the back room, and this Zoom format, and we were talking to one another. And one of the things was the high number of individuals that we're sharing here today that maybe haven't been connected to conference before. Are you here information seeking? Are you connection seeking? And how will you do that? Are you here for both? I'll also give you a little psychological kind of guarded space comment. As you're making connections, it might feel really scary. Kind of put yourself out there to talk about your story a little bit, to get connected with others. Know that you are the holder of your story, and you don't owe your story to anyone. And sharing your story can be one of the most cathartic, beautiful experiences that you can have, because it's your truth. And one of the most difficult things that we see, as I see in my psychology practice, people who feel like they're forced to not live their truth. They have to keep secrets, or they have to maybe not say how sick they feel that day, or or how anxious they are about an upcoming appointment or scan or whatever it might be. When they're living inauthentically, when they're not matched with kind of how they're able to live versus what they're feeling in their heart, that's where a lot of psychological challenges come up. Depression, anxiety, those kind of things can kind of sneak in. For some of us, we're more prone to that, right? It's kind of how we're built. For others of us, it really can be very state dependent, what's going on in this given moment. So I want you to think about what parts of your story you feel comfortable sharing, and also know that you don't need to share anything that you're not comfortable with in any of the sessions that happen. And I will encourage you to take some of those chances when you feel strong enough to do so. Seeking information can be also such a blessing, but it also can cause a little bit of anxiety, right? Especially if it's material that you've not heard before. Sit with that anxiety and acknowledge it. Don't try and push it away super quick, because we need to acknowledge why it's there. It's there for a reason. It's our body telling us something. What support do you need in that? And kind of along those lines, as we're going through anything that we go through, but specifically talking about this conference in particular, I want you to just monitor your stress if you're feeling overwhelmed. The beauty of this is that there's so many sessions that are recorded that you can go back in your time and place and pacing and maybe revisit something. I want you to think about kind of doing a full body assessment, if you would, kind of as you're sitting here now, as we're talking about this introductory piece and kind of setting our intentions for the conference. What are you feeling in your body? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling hopeful? Are you feeling joyous? Are you feeling heard? What are the words? Kind of do a little quick self-assessment head to toe, figure out what you're feeling. And as rich as the information is that you're going to get over the next days, and I mean rich, I, again, today kind of just looked at the schedule and was in awe at the incredible lineup of individuals that are going to share with you over the next several days. That richness is beautiful, but if you're in a state of kind of feeling hyper aroused, you're feeling anxiety, stress, even trauma, some of the things that we just naturally have to talk about can be really, really scary. I want you to know that in that moment, you're probably not taking in the information, and give yourself grace, self-compassion, take breaks, take care of you. And again, there's going to be so many sessions that are recorded. You can always go back and kind of revisit when you're in a place of not being so what we call hyper aroused, kind of feeling like you're almost jumping out of your skin. That's a reality for a lot of people. And I think as we start conferences where there's lots of good information, lots of technical information, sometimes we forget that can just be a lot sometimes, and we can take it in chunks and we can slow it down. And that's really up to me to say what that is for myself. So I encourage you to do that as well. Kind of monitor that level of stress, do a body check-in. It's a really quick process. Watch your posture even. How many of you know you show your anxiety in your posture? You might, what I call turtle, bring your shoulders up, get a little bit more self-protective, literally. If you're doing that, can you take some deep breaths? Can you meditate, say a prayer, whatever fits for you, to kind of bring it down a little bit? And then maybe taking a break is exactly what the doctor ordered. Another piece of this is kind of that lean into not choosing to sit in despair. There is a true reality of the issues that we talk about in this organization that are scary, and that the outcome is difficult at best sometimes. And I want to just acknowledge that and say, yes, yes, yes. And if we look at knowledge as power, we resist the tendency to sit in the sorrow, to sit in the despair. I don't know how I can help my loved one, or I don't know how I can ask for help if I'm the individual affected, and I don't want to be a burden to other people. All those things that roll around in our heads just as human beings coping with a very significant life issue. I want you to acknowledge it. I want you to name it. Gosh, I'm feeling really anxious right now, or I feel really like inept right now. I'm not sure how to help. And then take action to kind of move through it versus sitting and being paralyzed by it. Now, we all know the word paralyzed is literally like being able to not move limbs and things like that. But there's an emotional paralyzed, isn't there? And sometimes you may have felt that sitting in a doctor's office or at a geneticist's office getting news, or not feeling heard by loved ones and supporters. In the grief world, there's actually the rule of thirds. And the more work I do with your organization, I wonder if this actually doesn't hold true for all of us. And the rule of thirds is it's an unpublished rule. It's kind of known amongst thanatologists that when something big happens, like in the case I'm talking about, maybe a death or something like that, there's 3 different sets of people. Those who we expected to be there for us and they just disappeared. Those who we didn't expect to be there for us and really stood forward. And then the other one is the group of people who say, I'll be there, whatever you need, however you need support. And then they kind of just putter off and aren't there. And I think sometimes the rule of thirds applies to what you all go through here in the organization as well. And that's why making the connections with those people who understand is even more important, because they're going to be in the true helpful third, right? And we all need as many people in that category as we possibly can have. So choose to reach out and make new connections. They might be in very unanticipated ways. One thing at the last conference, I remember very clearly hearing a conversation. That conversation was between an individual who lived in a very rural area, had never had access to the big docks in the field, never, couldn't imagine that. And now sitting right in front of them, literally, kind of became a little bit like lost her voice a bit and wasn't sure how to go up and ask a question. And so we sat there and we talked about it for a little bit, and we talked about her paralysis in her voice and how to kind of get over that. Because you know what, the professionals that serve your community are unlike any other. I've seen them shed tears with people asking questions. I've seen them hug. I've seen them be incredibly supportive stances. And that's pretty incredible. And that speaks to the power of the connection, professionals, individuals, families. You guys have got it. Tap into it and be excited about what this next little while brings. Now, before we kind of end this little section, which I hope you felt validating, but also cheerleading, you are going into a time of incredible opportunity. And many of you from different countries, I especially in time zones that don't necessarily mesh with when things are happening, I applaud you for being connected and for reaching out. I can't wait to see what these connections all bring in all of these different countries that we've spoken about that are represented here and represented throughout this conference. I encourage you to take notes. I encourage you to maybe have a separate sheet where you have questions that you want to try and ask either other fellow individuals or professionals as it comes available. Make sure you're using the Q&A, the different answers, even if we can't answer it as part of the session. There is what feels like an army of people that reach out. I get emails all the time. Hey, would you add anything to this response kind of idea? It's such a beautiful community that you are a part of. Take advantage of that. Look at this with your intention in that information seeking. I hope at the end you feel like you've got the information that you needed, and or you at least know where to seek out more for your individual, very specific situation. It's easy to become a yes butter. I don't know if that makes sense as I say that, but I hear what you're saying, yes, but that's not going to work for me. And I'm going to encourage you to resist that urge and lean into the information. How does what I'm learning apply or not apply? And the things that not apply, you can kind of put aside. I tell my students as I'm training them at Midwestern, I'm training psychologists, and I say, allow your clients that you serve to put aside the things that don't mesh with their soul, that don't mesh with their needs of the moment. And I encourage you to do the very same thing here as you're reaching out. The power of connection, though, I'm going to challenge you. I want each and every one listening to have at least 5 new names, email addresses, and phone numbers at the end of your time in the conference, whatever that is, if it's one day or the entire time, and keep connected with those individuals. And I also want to encourage reciprocality of relationships. So the most beautiful relationships, the healthiest relationships are give and take, right? If we use that glass of water idea again, not in a half full, half empty way, but just in a pouring into one another, there are times you're going to need to pour into that person, and there are times that person's going to need to pour into you. And if that's not happening, it's okay to reevaluate and again, not have that necessarily right in your inner circle. If we talk about that idea of circling the wagons again, you deserve understanding, You deserve love. You deserve support. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to have an experience in your medical meetings, in your life meetings, in your social circles that are supportive and uplifting. And the magic can start right here. Set the intention and set the expectation. We are here for each other. And I'm able to pour into you and you're able to pour into me. What a beautiful part of fostering mental wellness and well-being, all the while dealing with all these life challenges that inherently come with connective tissue diseases, disorders, however you want to speak it. We need to claim the truth of experience and know that we can get those needs met and also meet the needs of others in connected circles like this. So I so encourage you to do that. What is your intention? What are you hoping to get out of this? And how do you make moves that help breathe that into existence? In despair, we sit and wait for something to happen to take us out of it. When we lean into not being in that space, we start to see things that are hopeful and that can kind of pull us through that space. Acknowledge the challenge and embrace the hope. And you will hear a million stories of hope if you keep your ears open during these times that are spent together. So with that, I just really want to say thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you. I cannot imagine not having a community like this. You guys are incredible and I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. Have a beautiful conference.
Melissa, that was outstanding. If you have a minute, check out the chat because everybody is singing your praises. And I just think it's such an incredible way to start the conference. There's so many new people here with us tonight, and it is a lot of information and a lot of emotion. So really, really great to have that to kick us off tonight. So thank you for that.
Awesome, thank you.
And the rest of this session tonight is also really going to help bring it all together for everybody. We have what we call a personal perspectives panel. So we have 4 different people who have Marfan, Veds, and Lois Dietz. And they each have come to the foundation in a different way, and they've participated in different things, and they have different ways that they've coped and connected. And I think that you will all love hearing from each and every one of them. I'm not even going to tell you very much about them because they're going to talk about themselves. So the first one that we're going to introduce is Peter Donato, who is from Boston. So I will take a step back, and Peter, stage is yours.
Thank you, Eileen. My name is Peter, as Eileen said. I was diagnosed with Lois-Dietz syndrome at the end of 2005, beginning of 2006. And a few months later, my parents discovered the Marfan Foundation, and we attended our first annual conference that summer in Philadelphia. And that began our connection to this foundation even 18 years later. Throughout the years, my family and myself have leaned on the people we've met through this foundation to ask questions, find resources, and get other opinions. One main connection we made or we used is at the beginning of 2013. I was at my yearly cardiology appointment, and the doctor informed us that that I was due for surgery. So after that appointment, me, my mom, my dad, we talked to each other, but then we also went to our friends in this community who have had the surgery, who have had kids who had the surgery. And one of the main questions that we asked them is, what do you wish that you had asked, or what did you ask these surgeons when you were going through this? And we took all that information and we brought those questions to the doctors, and it became extremely helpful for us. And for me to be able to go to those people and talk to them about their recovery, about how they felt leading up to it, and so on and so forth. And that was huge for us. And now post-surgery, post a few other surgeries, I get to be in those shoes. I got friends who have gone through medical stuff and families who have gone through medical stuff. Now they come to me, hey, what did you ask? Hey, how did you handle this? How did you handle that? And being able to help those people understand what was happening, what they could expect from these surgeries and these doctor's appointments is something that people find immensely helpful. I run the teen program for the Marfan Foundation, and being able to help those teens adapt to their diagnosis and adapt to going to college, going to high school, is part of why this foundation is so good with these connections. Like Dr. Flint said, these connections are super helpful for everyone, and being able to use them is awesome. I've learned a lot from all the friends I've made throughout the years, and it's an incredible opportunity. And this conference, virtually, like Dr. Flint said, make friends, find connections, people from your state, people from your region, people from the next town over, the next county over. It'll be super helpful, and it will make you feel less alone. Like it makes me feel less alone, but those are the connections that mean a lot to me. I got very good friends who I have attended their wedding, I'm going to attend their weddings, attended their hometowns, and it's a lot of fun. And, this conference, this foundation brings out the best, brings all of us together to make these incredible connections that will last for decades. So I hope you all enjoy the rest of your conference, and that's it for me. Eileen?
Thank you, Peter. You're getting a lot of accolades in the chat box as well. Everybody loves listening to you. They should all root for the Celtics for you tonight, I think. So anyway, thank you for sharing your story. I'm sure that's going to help people during the week as I listen and take something from what you had to add. Our next speaker is joining us from North Carolina, and that is Jerome Harper. So Jerome, let me go back there and I will bring you forward.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jerome Harper. Can you guys hear me? Hey, yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jerome Harper. I have Marfan syndrome. I was diagnosed at the age of 5. In my family, we have 3 generations that we are aware of that have Marfan syndrome, including my mom, who is a spontaneous mutation. She was also diagnosed very early on, as well as both of my brothers who are no longer with us. They both passed due to aortic dissections 3 years apart. And I also have a niece who is 6 years old now and who also has Marfan syndrome. So we have a lot of experience with Marfan syndrome, but it wasn't always that way. For the longest time, it was really depressing because outside of my family, we didn't know anyone else who had Marfan syndrome. And I grew up in Washington, D.C., but it wasn't until my aortic dissection and my first heart surgery, and I have a St. Jude mechanical valve. I'm totally blind in my right eye. I've had the spinal fusion surgery, and all of that happened, as a teen. Marfan's really started to take its toll on me as a teen. But one of the things that really helped me out a lot was being intentional about seeking others and building relationships. I remember telling myself there has to be something out here that can help us, because prior to, no one in my family knew anyone else with Marfan's, and it just seemed, unrealistic. Um, but I reached out to the Mid-Atlantic chapter, and I met some awesome people there, and I attended my first conference in Baltimore back in 2014. And it was, the way I always explain it is, it was the first time I felt like I could be myself. It was the first time I felt like I could talk about all those things that made me feel like I was unique and different, or even, a weirdo in so many cases, because I couldn't talk about it with family members or with friends. But I was able to talk about my retina being detached. I was able to talk about, the insecurities of growing up, with the longer fingers and being super tall and thin, and all of the things that I kind of suppressed throughout the years. So attending the Marfan conference back in 2014 was, it helped me, it helped me build confidence in knowing that I'm not the only one. And I was able to see other people who could relate and who were still living. They were still living in spite of having Marfan syndrome. And I've continued with that by attending walks. I brought my entire family out. We went to the North Carolina walk, and this year, and I have family members go to the Washington, D.C. walk. And it's just such an inspiration to see people who understands, who gets it, and who are willing to share information. That's been the biggest thing. Another big thing for me was learning to acknowledge my truth. We mentioned earlier about putting on a mask, and it seemed like my entire life up until my young adulthood, I would just say, "Oh, I'm fine, everything's great," and I would sit and cry to myself, and have to wipe my eyes and go back out into the world and be bold and courageous, and even suffer in silence. But through the conferences, through the walks for victory, even attending the grief and loss sessions, I've learned that I have control over my life in spite of the challenges that come with Marfan syndrome. And the big empowerment there is just hearing other people's stories. So that was a big thing, just me acknowledging, making up my mind and saying, I'm going to live. Yes, I have, eye issues. I have back issues, heart issues. I have issues with my joints and bones. Yes, I've lost both of my siblings to Marfan syndrome, but I decide to live, what that looks like. For me, another thing was, hey, I accept myself enough. I am enough. I'm not going to compare myself to my friends, compare myself to other friends and coworkers, but I am enough. When I made these decisions, no matter what I was going through, because it seemed like at one point, if I wasn't going through a surgery, maybe my mother was, or one of my brothers, and now even my niece. So, it could be frightening. It could be frightening because you just don't know what next, even when you're taking the preventive measures, right? Both of my brothers, they passed taking preventative measures, and eating healthy and doing all the right things. And it becomes extremely real. However, it is extremely important for me to love myself. And because I've been able to build those networks, build those connections, and with Marfan syndrome and related connective tissue disorders, and love myself, I've been able to have a different perspective on life, a different, like, basically an attitude of gratitude, right? Like, even though my brothers are no longer with me, but I'm thankful for the relationships we did have. And I learned to honor their life and have great memories. I'm a father of two, and I've been married, and I'm learning to be thankful for all that I am and all that I do. And it's really been as a result of seeing other people in the communities live, and be able to. So I'm not sure if you guys seen, but I am on the cover of the connective issues this season, and it took a lot for me to get to a point where I could share and use all that I've been through as my superpower, because that's how I look at it. Every surgery, every heartache physically, every blood, sweat, and tears, all the things that I've worked for, I've learned to use it as a superpower. And I'll say this and finish up. But I have a St. Jude's mechanical valve. Anyone else who have that, you have a ticking. Tick. It's a consistent. It sounds like a watch. And for the longest time, I was afraid to go to sleep because I was afraid that I wasn't going to wake up. So that ticking from the St. Jude's mechanical valve reminded me of death for so long. But after being in the community and learning of others and accepting myself for who I am, I've learned to hear that ticking and see it as a sign of life and not a sign of death. So now when I'm grateful that I'm, have a mechanical valve and that I'm ticking, right? Because it helps me it reminds me that, Jerome, you have life, you're here for a reason, and you add value to the world. And that's been my focus here. And that's what I tell everyone else. Yes, you may be going through all the challenges that come with your condition, but that's not who you are. And you add value beyond the condition to the world. You have gifts and talents. And that, if you haven't already, I encourage you to tap into that. And that's what I've been doing and embracing over the years. Thank you.
Sorry, do that all over again. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I was getting the chills listening because it really is resonating with everybody. Go over to the chat box and you can read all the nice things people are saying and the impact that you are having by sharing your story. It really means a lot to everybody out there, and there's like 200 people on. So thank you so much for sharing. Our next speaker I'm back. Our next speaker tonight will be Dominic Corso, and he is up next. Dominic?
All right. I am Dominic Corso. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I have VEDS. Thanks a lot, Eileen, for letting me follow those two, by the way. This is going to be difficult for me to match. But I am VEDS. I am Knoll, which I think is an important distinction. As Knoll is something with VEDS that is supposed to be later life onset, which is exactly my experience. At the age of 44, I had emergency surgery to repair 3 aneurysms that they found in my abdomen. And there's a life-saving surgery, lots of staples, lots of hours in the emergency room, but they saved me. At the time, I have no family history of any kind of genetic disorders or any aortic disorders. So I am de novo. So I'm the first of my kind in my family, not the last. But I had no clue what I was doing. I can tell you that when we start to talk about mental health and anxiety, that was certainly an issue with me after getting, just after coming out of the surgery, really not knowing what had happened. Is this going to happen again? What are all these changes going on? But then in February of 2020, that's when I was diagnosed with VEDS. And then that led to an entirely different level of anxiety and uncertainty. Just being told that you have a rare disorder and kind of being, I have a great geneticist, but kind of being told, there are limited options for what you could do. This is rare. You're not going to be able to go to every hospital and have people understand what you're going through or even really know what to do just at a basic level. I did suffer that reality. I'd say for about 3 months, I was kind of just wandering, not really understanding what VEDS was, what this diagnosis was, what it meant for me. But it was pretty bleak when you start to Google things, you start to kind of do your own research. There wasn't a lot of good information, not a lot of hope, as Melissa pointed out. So it led to a lot of despair for 3 months. But then I found the calls through the VEDS movement. I actually found the vet supports calls, which I am a huge fan of. And because living with vets is something that I don't know that is possible for anybody to do on their own. I really don't think you can do it on your own. And so when I started to first get introduced to this group of people, the first thing I saw was people that were just doing it. And I don't want to steal from Nike there, but there's people that were just actually doing it. And I don't know how. And I still, I will say to you, as somebody that might be new to VEDS or Marfans or low steeds or anything that we have here in the community, it's going to be difficult. But when you start to just associate with these people, you start to see people who are just doing it. The first person that I met that had VEDS in person was 7 years old. And when I saw that family, we all got together. And I think Jerome mentioned it, like you're just kind of with your people and you kind of all were feeling the same thing. And at that moment, I felt like I could actually live in that moment because I knew we were all worrying about the same thing. So I think that it's really important to find those people. As Melissa said, there are going to be a lot of people who do not understand what you're talking about, do not understand the severity and how it's changed your life. And to expand your circle is extremely important. And the way that I did that primarily was through the calls, through the VEDS organization. And I think that it's important to recognize that on those calls, it really is, and I like to say it's the best, worst place to be. You're surrounded by people who understand your situation, they understand the frustrations that you're having, but oftentimes they have answers. I don't have answers. I don't know what to say most of the time, but at least I can be there to support and to listen. And I think that's really what's important here when I think about getting involved in the community, is that it's difficult. People have anxiety just about kind of opening up and actually saying like, hey, I have VEDS, or, hey, I'm struggling. I have, I think I'm going out of my mind. I don't know how to deal with this. But being in that group, it's a group that you can, this whole community is a place where you can just take and get what you need, learn what you need. And I do this often, and sometimes you just need to disappear. You just take off and have your time by yourself. But this community is here for you. I really want to focus on this last thing that I'll talk about, which is, how are you going to actually do something with this? How are you actually going to go forward and get involved in the community? And like Melissa said, she challenged you to get to 5 contacts. I think that's a great challenge. And maybe I'll challenge you to do this. Just join a call. Just make a Facebook post. Say something stupid. Nothing's going to happen. I've never once heard anybody criticize somebody about their contribution to a call or Facebook. Just get involved. And it's also really important to understand that you don't have to help by sharing your story. You don't have to help by giving answers. Again, I don't have a lot of answers, but I can listen. And it's really important for me to be in a group of people who can just hear what I have to say and just listen. And so if you can be there on the call, you can help by just listening. So join a call, join a webinar. Ryan and Melissa just did a webinar that was really excellent. Go look at those webinars, start to get involved in the community and see what you can do to just get on a call, make a post. I guarantee nothing bad will come from it. It's been all good for me. And, I wish you guys the best in trying to get out there and actually do something. So thank you very much for the time today.
Thank you so much, Dominic. Really appreciate you sharing your thoughts. Great advice for people. And you two are getting a lot of love in the chat box tonight. So thank you for doing that. So our final panelist today, somebody I know for a while. She also lives in Florida, and that is Adriana Rivera. So I believe she is coming into the front here to speak with you all and share her story.
All right, thank you everyone, and thank you, Eileen, for the intro. My name is Adriana Rivera, and I am in Florida, in Central Florida. So for me, let me start with saying that I've heard, from some of the other panelists, and they talk about family and how they were one in the family of other folks that have. whatever the issue is. My issue is Marfan syndrome. I was born with Marfan's. But I was on my own. So my dad had it, but he didn't know. And my mom and my dad did not live together. I come from a broken home. I'm very open with my story with all facets of it. And I think that, a lot of us that deal with these health issues, that's not the only issue that we're dealing with, right? Some of us are struggling with poverty. Some of us are struggling with difficult home situations. So that just adds to it. So I was alone. It was my mom, my sister, and myself. My dad was out of the picture from a very early age. And actually this year, I just turned 38, the 1st of June. And this is the age that my dad passed away from Marfan's. So when I turn 39 next year, it will be a big goal, right, in my life, because one of the things that I wanted to do was outlive my dad. So as I didn't really have a Marfan's community, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. We didn't really know anybody. I didn't meet somebody else with Marfan's until the first time that I went to a Marfan Foundation conference, and it was the one in oh God, it's a state that has a lot of lakes. Minnesota, yes. And I was a volunteer in that conference. That was the first time, and I was a grown woman, seeing other people with this condition. And it really humbled me because I got to see that, first of all, I'm not alone, and I'm also, a lot of people are dealing with more difficult situations within their Marfans than me, because sometimes when you feel alone, you feel like you are dealing with this on your own and that you have the worst, the worst thing in the world, and nobody's going through something more difficult than you. So that moment really humbled me, and really made me understand that within my medical situation, I am blessed. So I think it's also really good to acknowledge all of the things that we can do. A lot, like for one, I can walk, I can run, I can dance. I don't like running, but I can if I had to, like, run away from a dog or something. I can dance. I love dancing. I can swim. I can speak. I can articulate sentences. I'm smart. I have a job that I love. So I think it's also really important to sit with the cans, with what we can do also. And without really having much of a community, even now, without the Marfan's Foundation, in my real life, in my circles in person, I don't have anybody else that has Marfan's. So it's still really just me, outside of the connections that I have with the foundation. And so I think something that has really helped me is to find things that I'm passionate about. So talents that I have, pastimes, and not only work on them and do them, but also find the communities within those talents and pastimes. So find the dance community and have friends that like to dance like I do, right? Or find the artist community or the painter community. I'm not an artist, but for those of you who are, right? Find those communities that nourish those talents and those interests. If you don't have the Marfan community near you, like my case. Something else that has helped me, and doesn't really have to do with connection, but on a personal note, something that helped me, and this is also why I decided to show up with a red lip and with a big earring, is I really started coming into myself when I started looking good, because looking good made me feel good about myself. Especially as a young woman, through my teenage years, teenage girls and boys too, we compare each other and we're like, I don't have what they have and I don't look like that. So, when I got a little older and I was able to explore with clothing and with makeup and with jewelry, I really started to, find what makes me feel beautiful. And feeling beautiful made me more audacious and like stepping out of my comfort zone and saying hi to people. And I've always been very extroverted. That's why I always was in the inside, but I never allowed myself to be the extrovert that I wanted to be because I felt so badly about my appearance. So it wasn't until I started outwardly looking how I felt inwardly that I started being the extrovert that I am today. And it's been a journey. I still sometimes put on shorts and wonder if people are gonna, talk about how skinny my legs are. And but little by little, you get through it. And for all those moms out there, I really have to say, again, since I was on my own, my mom made me strong. My mom, from a very young age, decided that her daughter was going to be a strong woman. And she equipped me, even though she wasn't going through what I was going through. She equipped me with the tools to be strong. So all those moms out there, and dads too, you have a lot of power for your kids and how they see themselves and how they view their position in the world. So if there's anything I can do to help on how my mom actually like made me strong, I'd be happy to connect with any of you. But I thank my mom so much because the strength that she instilled in me allowed me to also be the extrovert that was hiding inside that I always knew that I was, but I was too afraid to show. So yeah, I think I'm at time. I could talk forever because my favorite subject is myself, but I think I'm done. So thank you all and have a great evening.
Adriana, thank you so much for sharing. God, I've known you, it feels like I've known you for a very long time already. And I've even seen how much you've grown, and you're so outspoken and so open and honest with everybody. It's really, really great. I know a lot of people come to our virtual conference, they want to hear medical information. And I think that what they're getting tonight is this whole community feeling and all the support from you all about how to live with these conditions and how to create connections and be part of the community and be an active part of the community to the extent that you're comfortable with. You can see with these 4 people how it's helped them. So I hope you all do take advantage of everything you can this week and all our offerings during the year. So I want to thank you all for joining us for our opening session tonight. In about an hour, or a little bit less than an hour, at 8 o'clock Eastern time, we're going to have our support groups, and those are all listed on the schedule, and there's truly something for everyone. And unlike this session, this opening session, those are all interactive, and they will give you an opportunity to connect directly with other people who are here at this virtual conference. So hopefully you've seen tonight how that could be beneficial, and I hope you can take advantage of those sessions tonight and the rest of them during the week. If you have any questions about the conference, feel free to email us. Very easy, at conference@marfan.org, and we were here to help you. So thank you all for joining tonight, and we hope to see you again later this evening and during the rest of the week. Have a great night.